proceed from there. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Julian. Ms. Ferrari, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just a couple of points about the amendment. I can't support this amendment, obviously, because number one, I'm not sure why we would remove Paul Bernardo from the motion. As we've heard, we have these letters submitted to the committee, March 9th, 2024. I'm writing today to request and encourage you to undertake a study of the reclassification and transfer of Luca Magnotta and other federal offenders at the emergency meeting called on Monday, March 11th, 2024. I, along with Tennille Chwalslik and Laura Murray, are willing to be witnesses and are available Wednesday through Friday, as well as whenever needed in the future. So I think the other point I think is which is very, very bizarre, I think, for people watching at home, is why the Liberals are bringing up what happened, 10, 15 years ago. What we're talking about is right now. What we're talking about is the most sadistic killer in Canadian history. So I think it just doesn't make any sense. And how, again, back to the point of this motion and the amendment that was put forward by the Bloc, they want to push it down to one meeting. How in the world are you going to solve how and why this happened when we know the minister's office was notified 7 times? So one meeting is certainly not enough. To Mr. Julian's point about wasting taxpayer dollars and public safety, under this coalition that he has with the Liberals, sexual assaults are up 72%. Domestic violence is an epidemic in this country. So if you want to talk about public safety, we can certainly do that. It's never been worse. People have never felt more unsafe under this Trudeau government. In terms of taxpayer dollars, we can also delve into that greatly if he would like, in terms of what he's done with the Liberal government, in terms of we're servicing more debt than we are to health transfers because of their overspending and wasteful spending and corruption. And also we have a clerk and staff that work here regardless of whether we're here or not.
Mr. Julian?
Point of order. None of this is relevant, and I believe this is a filibuster. I do think it's important that we get to a vote in the next half hour prior to the committee meeting ending.
Mr. Julian, Ms. Ferrari, please.
And thank you to Mr. Julian for supporting this motion of not supporting Ms. Michaud's amendment. I do thank him for that, because what this amendment is doing is absolutely gutting the whole point of victims' rights. And I can't stress that enough when we have this opportunity here, and to call it political theater for the victims watching at home. This isn't theater, this is their life. To my Liberal member across the way, this is not political theater, it's their life.
Then stop treating it like political theater, Ms. Ferrari. Oh, thank you.
Are you for real?
Hot.
You literally just said if this was your family that you would do this.
Excuse me.
Through you, Mr. Chair.
Please, the interpreters, let's respect them. So go ahead, Ms. Ferrari.
I just think it's bizarre to call. We are literally translating what victims want. That we are literally reading verbatim what they have asked us to do. That is what we were elected to do. I'm not sure how you can call that political theater. It makes no sense. And you can smirk through you, Mr. Chair. He's smirking. If he can explain to me how that is political theater, I would love to hear that. In the meantime, I turn it back over that we must.
Mr. Chair, can I respond to the question just posed by Ms. Ferrari? No. She asked me to respond, so I can respond if she'd like to.
Very quickly, Mr. Shefke, please.
Point of order. So let's go to 291 transfers in 2012, 2013. Many of whom were murderers and rapists. Where was your outrage then? Where was Stephen Harper's outrage then? Where was your conservative outrage when the 2 years with the largest numbers of transfers occurred? Where was your outrage? That's my facts, Ms. Ferrari.
Hold on, please. Yes. Point of order, Mr. Caputo. Please keep it on topic.
There is a speaking list. My colleague, Ms. Ferrari, was speaking. It is utter hypocrisy for the Liberal member across the way to say that we shouldn't engage in political theater when he cuts off my colleague who is speaking and then demands to respond. He will have due time to respond to the victims and other Canadians. Thank you.
I was given the floor, Mr. Caputo, by the chair.
Okay, that's it. Ms. Ferrari, can you continue, please?
Listen, I'm not even going to credit that with a response because it's whack-a-mole. I mean, I was in grade 8 or whatever grade I was, and it doesn't even make any sense what he's asking me in terms of my position. But what I can tell you right now is my position is I remember being 15 years old when Paul Bernardo was a Scarborough rapist. And every woman my age at 45 years old knows this. And to the point that I brought up already, the judge who sentenced him said he will never be rehabilitated. He was transferred in the dead of night. And to Ms. Michaud's point about this happened in 2022, why are we talking about it now? Because nobody knew. That is gross incompetence on this government's point. That should be even more concerning to anyone else. How did this happen and why? That is the point of this motion. If you want to stop this from happening again, you have to study it and you have to bring forward these people, and in particular, the victims. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Okay, we're going to move on to Mr. Motz, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I will speak to the amendment and would like to be my spot on the regular motion to be there after the vote, please. I do not and cannot support the amendment by my Bloc colleague. As has already been indicated, victims are depending on this. We have a situation that has developed over the last 8 years through legislation and a soft on crime approach that this is a more common practice. And I think it deserves significant study to be able to understand how and why and how to prevent it moving forward. Now, Ms. O'Connell, in her opening comments, made a statement. Mr. Julian made some statements, and Mr. Schiffke has recently made some statements in reference to this amendment as well by Julian and Schiffke, that there's a the conservative government of the past had the highest record of transfers from maximum to medium or any transfers, period. I would challenge them to show us the actual numbers of how many of those were transferred, were regular offenders and not the worst of the worst. That's what you have to figure out here. We're talking about the worst of the worst. There are maximum security prisoners who can be transferred from maximum to minimum to medium that are not in the same category as dangerous offender designation. These are dangerous offender designated by the courts. So we have to keep that in mind. The other interesting comment was that the escapes. We've had the highest number of escapes under the Harper government in the past. I would challenge Mr. Schiffke to have a look at that, and Mr. Julian. How many of those escapes were from minimum security prisons? And I would venture for you to come back with those numbers, because you'll find them shockingly high. The highest number are from minimum security prisons than from maximum or medium. So again, to try and throw the conservatives of the past under the bus misses the point here. Chair, again, like I said, we have an obligation.
Point of order.
We have an obligation to victims.
Point of order, Mr. Motz. Thank you. Mr. Julian.
Thank you. I always enjoy hearing Mr. Motz, but this is not relevant to the amendment, and I am concerned about a filibuster developing when we really should be proceeding to the vote. Hopefully the amendment will be rejected and we'll move to the main motion, but I don't think a filibuster is appropriate. I think we need to move to an actual vote.
Mr. Julian, Mr. Motz, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Mr. Julian. I'm only responding to those of you who, like yourself, Mr. Julian, who actually made this comment in response to Ms. Michaud's amendment. So as a result of that, yes, I'm going to speak to it. Now, I agree. This amendment, we need to get to a vote and defeat it. I agree with my Liberal colleagues on adding some more witnesses and giving this the attention that it deserves. And I'm actually surprised that Mr. Schiffke would think otherwise. And I'll have other comments to make when we get back to the motion, the main motion, with respect to some facts on C-83 and the like. So thank you for your time, Chair. And again, I cannot and will not support this block amendment.
Thank you. Mr. Caputo, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I think it's ironic that the Liberals initially said they wanted to add witnesses, and now they're in support of rejecting the very witnesses they wanted to add. Howard Saper, John Howard Society, Canadian Aboriginal Legal Services, Black Legal Services, Canadian Civil Liberties Association. These are the very groups the Liberals said we should add, and now we have Mr. Schiffke saying, no, we don't want to add them. We want to go from 6 meetings to 1 meeting. Mr. Speaker, or pardon me, Mr. Chair, That is utter hypocrisy. Mr. Biddle, to his credit, spoke with great sincerity, I would say, when he talked about the impact on the communities. And now he will be asked to vote on this, to go from 6 meetings to 1. Ms. O'Connell echoed similar sentiments. Now she will be asked for this to go from 6 meetings to 1 and gutting the very witnesses that she said should be put forward. And I'm going to wait till Mr. Schiffke gets back to his seat so he can hear this. Please.
Point of order, Mr. Chair. I'm sitting right here.
No,
if Mr. Caputo needs glasses, I can provide him with some.
Okay.
But I'm
Come
sitting
on.
right here.
Oh, come on.
I'm literally sitting right in front of you, Mr. Caputo.
That's enough, guys.
Your remarks are uncalled for.
Okay. Mr. Caputo, are you going to continue?
Yes, I am. And through you, Mr. Chair, I would really like Mr. Schiffke to hear this. This is from one of the friends of the victims. So when he reduces it from 6 people to 1, including the gutting of the victims in subpoint I, quote, and I received this message a few minutes ago, I think it's important.
Mr. Chair.
Oh, you don't want to hear that one?
Go ahead. Ms. O'Connell,
Mr.
please.
Chair, I think if Mr. Caputo wants to read something into the record, that's fine, but he is attributing a motion to Mr. Schiffke that didn't happen, so I think he should stick to his counterpoints instead of this pretty lame attack on personal attacks. We've all been able to speak our points, and he should continue to do so without the personal attacks, because he's kind of making a fool of himself in this moment.
Thank you. Mr. Caputo, please.
Yeah, I'll always, if standing up for victims means making a fool of myself, Ms. O'Connell, through you, Mr. Chair, I'll make a fool of myself each and every day, and I will show up to Parliament right here, right now, today, tomorrow, and the next day, and make a fool of myself, Ms. O'Connell. Now, I'm going to read this into the record for the benefit of those who plan on voting against this motion, or with this motion to gut from 6 meetings to 1. The Bloc and the Liberals seemingly teaming up to gut the very motion that the Liberals were putting forward. Quote, I think it's important to hear the witnesses on the impact of these moves. Victims deserve more than 1 meeting. End quote. So what I'd really like, what I'd love is for the Liberals and the Bloc to explain on this sub-amendment why they are voting against, why they are voting to gut the very witnesses they said we need to hear from, why they are choosing to side with less information instead of more, while they are accusing others of getting on a soapbox when they themselves are making this political. Mr. Chair, I would love for them to answer that question. Why? Why the victims, please, they should be answering. Thank you.
Mr. Lloyd, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I wasn't expecting to get on the speakers list so quickly. I'm just curious, is this, when Mr. Schiffke said he was in support of the Bloc motion to move this from 6 meetings to 1 meeting, was that maybe Mr. Schiffke's personal initiative, or is this the position of the Liberal Party on this committee that they would knowingly vote to reduce this from 6 meetings to 1 meeting, full on knowing that they're removing the Elizabeth Fry Society? Like, it would be impossible for us to hear from, the Black Legal Society, the Aboriginal Legal Society, the Elizabeth Fry Society, the John Howard Society. It just seems to me so bizarre that the Liberals could come forward with such an amendment, which was supported by, 3 parties here at this committee, 3 out of 4 parties, and yet flip-flop and turn 180 degrees so quickly from 6 meetings to 1 meeting and cutting the amount of witnesses. I just find it absolutely bizarre, and I'm curious to know whenever they're up on the speaking list if this is just the initiative of one Liberal member of the committee, or if this is now the position of the entire Liberal Party at the committee that they want to essentially gut this motion, including their own amendments. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Lloyd. Mr. Couric, please.
Thanks, Chair. And I think that it's time to get to a vote. I will not be supporting this amendment as it silences victims,